Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special bonus episode, fun-sized candy bar edition of Revolutions Per Movie. I'm so excited today to be talking to Linus O'Brien. Linus is a multidisciplinary creative and the director of Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror, a documentary celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Rocky Horror Show, and its creator, his father, Richard O'Brien. Strange Journey is being independently released in movie theaters this weekend, September 26, 2025. With that said, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Linus O'Brien. Hi, Linus.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good now that I see you. I feel like I know you after watching your film. Knowing that you were the youngest audience member to ever see the original stage production at the age of 4, I was kind of shocked that initially you felt like you weren't the person maybe to tell this film. How did you get the confidence to be like, I'm the person who needs to do this?
Well, it was I had come up with the idea after I saw the comments under the YouTube clip of "I'm Going Home" and how touching they were and heartfelt and poignant. So I took it to my old friend, who's an editor, who edited the Woodstock '99 movie and the Dissident movie. And he said, well, I've got these producers that I've been working with, Adam Gibbs and Garrett Price. And after one meeting with them, they were like, oh, you should direct this movie. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I probably should. I'm trying to think of who would be more qualified to do it. And to be honest, it fell to me because of my relationship with all the cast and crew, the relationship with my dad, the fact that I've heard of all these Rocky stories over the years. And so it was just a question of getting those stories onto tape, which we managed to. And then as things developed, you know, the importance of getting, talking about the midnight screenings and the effect of Rocky on the LGBTQ community, that was incredibly important too. So it is startling that I'm sitting here talking to you about it now and that it's finished, because after 3.5 years, you kind of get lost in it. It kind of feels like in some ways, like I've been in a dream and someone's woken me up and they're going, okay, your film's finished now. It's coming out next week. So yeah, it's very, very surreal.
Well, and also, you know, the film starts with your dad and yourself going to Hamilton, New Zealand, where he grew up, and seeing the Riff Raff statue, which I did not know existed, and now I'm sure tourism will be up there. But it's so funny, your dad, his presence, just as he walks down the street, and people are like, oh, hi. Even if they don't know who he is, they know he's somebody. Your dad just gives off that amazing air. And I love that even though he's your dad, the conversations you have in it are really frank. And did you know, like, for instance, that you were going to be able to tell the story of some of your dad's struggles, where he was like, will you still be my friend if I decide to change genders?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important part of the story because it's ironic, because he created this musical which has all of these themes of gender fluidity in it. And yet it took him 30 years to really kind of come to terms with it himself, and feel relaxed enough to say that he's 30% female and 70% male. It was incredibly important. And so in order to tell that story, like, and you know, because he can be a little guarded at times, you know, especially when talking about that stuff, but he can also be quite free talking about that stuff. So it was a combination of us asking some questions at the right time, using archival footage from other interviews, and then also getting his old friend, dear friend, Chrissy Shrimpton, who was the girlfriend of Mick Jagger and the sister of Jean Shrimpton, who is maybe considered one of the first supermodels. And she was his friend in an acting class, and probably knows him better in some ways than me and my siblings, because that's often the case. Your best friends often know more about you than your family.
Sure.
And so, yeah, using those three approaches of archival, are my questions to him, and Chrissy's recollections, helped paint a picture of his struggle early on in his life.
Most of us have always known a world with Rocky Horror in it. And, for instance, Clinton Street Theater in Portland, Oregon has been showing it since 1978.
Let's give a shout out to them.
Absolutely.
Because Rocky Horror is the longest running theatrical release in the history of film, right? And one reason why, and there might be others, it maintained that streak is because the projectionist or the owner of the theater would go to the theater every Friday or Saturday night during the pandemic and run it. So it's never stopped, and so a big shout out to them for keeping that streak going. And if anyone challenges me, like, oh, it was 47 years because of the pandemic, no, we know what they did.
They are amazing, and they are still running hot and strong. And you talked about the archival stuff earlier because it is fascinating. I think at the time that America started really embracing the midnight movie aspect of Rocky Horror was also seemed to be this era where news reporters were like, what's going on with these kids? And there's amazing footage. You don't even say who it is, but it's Michael Stipe of R.E.M. outside the theater going like, this is an excellent film. We're all quite normal, really. And he's like dressed like Frank-N-Furter, and it just blew my mind. So it must have been a glorious time to go through all this archival stuff when there must have just been a plethora of people just trying to crack this phenomenon.
Yeah, it was amazing going through the archival stuff. And there's so many clips in there, which I'm just so fond of. There's one with a woman sitting on the shoulders of someone, and she goes, it's great to be doing this instead of anything else. and then my dad tells that wonderful story about seeing it with an audience for the first time, a midnight audience for the first time. They were at a convention in Long Island, and he talks about seeing the Dory Hartley, the Frank-N-Furter impersonator at the 8th Street Playhouse, perform in front of the screen. Her silhouette was as big as Frank's, and the audiences are singing the refrains. And then we found the footage from him at the convention, and we're like, oh my God, this is great. Let's put these two things together, because it's such a wonderful moment in the film. Well, for me personally.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, the other great thing is you have your dad performing the songs acoustically, and you just hear them like, oh, this sounds like a skiffle song all of a sudden. Like you hear it like in a different folky context, but it's still got power. And what's fascinating about Rocky Horror, I feel like, is, for instance, when I had Michael Esper on the show, who has been in like American Idiot on Broadway and the Pavement musical, he's often really insecure about performing these earnest performances, musicals, where people, he's like, feels like he's still being judged, like people don't trust this concept. But Rocky Horror allows people, non-professionals, to just, even their first time on stage, feel so much comfort and performance. And it's so much of that is due to, not just the topic and, the comfortability of, breaking sexual norms and taboo and stuff like that, and just being like, hey, this is just what it is, welcome. But I'm just fascinated that it's just allowed people to just be so comfortable to just be their own kind of rock star.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think the legacy of Rocky boils down to two words, basically: community and connection. I think it's something that we're all looking for as human beings. And so for people who feel kind of on the outside of society, on the fringes, and feel marginalized, they can come to a place where there's no shame there. So we're all allowed to be sexual beings on this planet, and society often tells us what sexuality should look like, or what it does look like, what they think it looks like. And the reality of it for 95% of us is that we all carry bits of shame about our body and expressing ourselves sexually. And Rocky provided a place where you could go and do that and not be judged. And what a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I remember I saw Tim Curry in fishnets before I'd ever seen a woman in fishnets, right? I had a book at 10, it had like Bowie in it and Susie Quattro and your dad next to, Tim Curry. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, but everyone looks so hot. Like everybody is just amazing. I'm just like, okay.
The other thing I was thinking about the other day, because it's when he throws off his cape, right, and reveals himself. I think that the reason why Frank-N-Furter appealed especially to women was because there's Frank as a character. You put Frank in normal clothes. He's a very masculine man. He's very powerful. He's very forthright, and that's attractive to women. And then you put on the women's clothes and garters and all the rest, and then women are like, oh my goodness, but he's in touch with his feminine side as well. So you have a character, a man. Embodying both of the things that women find attractive. I think it was very eye-opening for a lot of people that they found Frank attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching the film now, this week, just it feels more important. It feels like, oh, yeah, you kind of took some of these safe spaces for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're just like, oh, this is so necessary. Like, this is going to be a beacon, hopefully forever for people, just to be like, I know where I'm going and I know what I can be. And yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, I think the thing is it's you would hope, and Trixie says in the movie, Trixie Mattel, whose story is so great in the movie. You would hope that Rocky would be a relic right now, that you would just turn to your daughter or your son and say, yeah, it used to be really strange when a woman wore a suit or a man wore a dress, but it's not the case, which is obviously sad. Let's get down to it, because we're going backwards in a way. But it's societies people who in power, who are always trying to keep power, always look to attack the most vulnerable, whether it's homeless people or refugees or immigrants or LGBTQ community. I mean, it's just been a pattern of human behavior. But I just don't think it ever wins. I just think that the hate doesn't win, and it won't win. And they've got a long road. They've got a long road ahead of them. People who hold hate in their hearts. And at the same time, I heard someone else say the other day, we have to believe that people who are filled with hate can change. And so it's upon us to hold those feelings, so we just don't. It doesn't become like this war us against them. And so I just believe that love will win out at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Another theme I really liked in the film was just the fact that this was just an idea from your dad that snowballed into an actual production, and they were like, we have nothing to lose. Let's just have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, the stage is small. It's got limitations. Let's just break through it.
Yeah.
Who can we get as a costumer? Who can we do this? It just seemed like every step of the way, it was kind of like, oh, really? Okay. And even your dad seems surprised when you're like, can I read you some of this? Like what these songs mean to people. Well, he still seems like he's like, oh, really? Oh, shucks.
He's always been kind of dismissive of Rocky. I think he thinks it's a piece of juvenile work, but when obviously it's not the case. And it's been borne out. The longevity of it has, let's say it only ran for 10 years, then his dismissive comments about it could be maybe justified in his mind. But no, people are telling me and him every day how important it is to them. There was a guy who came up to me at the end of our South by Southwest screening where we had our world premiere. He came up to the stage at the end of the Q&A and said, my wife and I met at Rocky 32 years ago. And she wanted me to let you and your dad know that if it wasn't for Rocky, she wouldn't be alive today. And those stories just keep coming day after day. I think Rocky, I don't think there's another movie, stage play, song, book that has tangibly saved the lives of people the way that Rocky has. And I think maybe in the hundreds of thousands now with 3 generations of fans. I can't be more supportive of the arts when it really touches people in that way.
I wanted to talk to you about, you having to self-release this film, because another mantra in the film is that Rocky Horror necessarily didn't find the audience found Rocky.
Yeah.
And I feel like with you self-releasing this film, it's I know it's probably maybe it must have been frustrating just being like, okay, we can't go through traditional channels. But I'm like, there's not another audience that wants to go to a movie theater more than these people. And I was like blown away. So I'm like, you are going to win this story because,
well, we certainly hope so. That's going to be borne out next week. Basically, it's the opening weekend next week, so we're going to see if that's the case. It's funny because what you said is exactly true. We would have, part of us would have liked to have just sold it to a streamer and then just, watch, the accolades and the love pour in. But we haven't been allowed to do that, and I think that sometimes the universe pushes you into where it should go. So, and the other funny thing is that I, every time throughout my life, mostly, and the production of the movie, whenever something negative would happen, you just have to wait 5 minutes, and something would come along and replace it, and it would be better. So this is like the ultimate test of that, right? This is the ultimate test. So let's see next weekend if we get a good response and people start sharing the hashtags and start talking about the documentary, and we can add more screens throughout October all the way up to Halloween. Then we'll see. So we'll see.
Well, I do have kind of a funny question for you. So what if your documentary turns into a cult hit and people start bringing props to your documentary to interact and shadowcast your documentary? What could you imagine with that?
Well, when we were in the RKO convention in Rhode Island, I think someone there mentioned, we should do a shadow cast of the documentary. I'm like, God, that's so meta, like so crazy.
Yeah, toast on toast on toast, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you do that, because obviously a documentary, the edits are so quick, and you go from one thing. Like, I don't know how they would get out of their costumes quick enough to change and do the archival stuff. I can't imagine how it would go.
Yeah, they'd have to wear half the outfit on one half of their face and the other and turn around.
Yes, that would be a solution.
Well, the film is really incredible, Linus, because there's so much to cover from shadow casting, the initial run when it moved into London over at the Roxy. We haven't even talked about Lou Adler and all he brought to it and the frustrations and 20th Century Fox not getting it and the shooting of the film and Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick. There's so much here.
Mm-hmm.
How did you narrow all this down to fit it into this beautiful piece of work?
Well, it's a trick. That's the trick to it all. We wanted it. My editor and I, and my creative partner Avner and I, we wanted it to be 90 minutes, and so to try and fit all of that in was tricky. But we did find towards the end of the movie we were repeating ourselves with comments on things and stuff, and so we were like, let's just take the best parts of all the things. This person says something similar to this person. Let's take the best one, and so it became a question of kill your darlings, basically. And when you do that, you're left with a much tighter, cohesive piece of work. And we're lucky that it's all worked out. Like, in some ways, we'd like to spend a little bit more time on the midnight screen. We'd like to spend a bit more time with my dad's story and the personal journey. We'd like to do all this. But then there's also that famous thing of leave them wanting more. So are you given enough? Do you feel like you've been given enough? And would you like a little bit more? Well, that's the sweet spot to be in.
It's totally true, because there was a part where I was like, this could have easily been a 6-part series. It's like, okay, it's an hour and a half now on just the shadow cast and how this came to be and, the footage from Fame and all that stuff. And then, okay, we're going to spend an hour on just the recording of the soundtrack, whatever. You could go on, but it is really beautifully put together. And it's somebody who's so close to it, obviously. I'm really amazed that you found, you honor it, but you also, it doesn't feel cloying. You know what I mean? It feels respectful, but it does. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's the trick of it, right? Is you want to support your subject matter without showering it with so much praise, right? A lot of these talking hot documentaries can be just like, where it's just one person after the other saying how much they love something, which is nice. But let's go a bit deeper than that in the comments that you're saying. And so some of the stuff that Susan Sarandon says at the end of the movie is spot on,
Yeah,
and
incredible.
we were able to cut her, because she didn't say those things all together, that speech. That was like 4 different clips that we cut together to make it sound like it was just one sentence. And so, yeah, by framing it with the right archival and the placement of it at the end of the movie, that's when the whole thing starts to, become its own living thing, basically.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Linus. I will put in the show notes links to where you can get tickets this weekend. It's showing in some theaters on Thursday, but it'll start nationwide and across the world Friday and afterwards. So please go support this film. It's really important that it's just an amazing film, but also just show, just put your faith and money and time into something DIY that just needs to be seen and heard. But at the end of every episode, sorry, I have to do this to you, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. So on a scale from 2 being the lowest.
Why 2?
No, I said be patient.
Okay.
This never makes any sense, okay? Hey, just think of your dad wrote this.
Sure.
With 2 being the lowest and 88 being the highest.
Okay.
How many jumps to the left do you give Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror?
Can I really say that? I mean,
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Can
everyone does.
Really comment on their own work like that? And
absolutely, they do.
Self-aggrandize
it's just jumps to the left. It's cheap currency.
Right. So let me see. I don't know about you. I would say that it's a solid B+ is what I would say. Out of all, I don't know how many steps that is.
It's 84 is the right answer. That's what I have right here. It's almost perfect, almost at 88. So close, but 84 is the correct leap slot. Right. Thank you so much, Linus. Congrats.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye!